First American woman to win 4 medals at an Olympic Games. 4 medals in '88, 3 golds, and 1 silver, 5 overall.
She was faster than any woman in history. A flash of color, muscle, and style who didn't just break records, she destroyed them, setting a bar that's still untouched today. Florence Griffith Joyner, or Flo-Jo, to the world, wasn't just an athlete, she was a phenomenon. Her insane speed was matched only by her revolutionary fashion, and the combination turned her into a global superstar, but behind the flashbulbs and the roar of the crowd, a different story was playing out. It was a life of quiet struggle, relentless pressure, and a deep insecurity she hid with her brilliance. And then, just as suddenly as she'd exploded onto the world stage, she was gone. Her death at just 38 years old was a shocking, tragic end that left a hole in the world of sports and kicked up a storm of questions that are still swirling decades later. How did one of the fittest women on the planet die so young, and so mysteriously? To understand the end of her life, you have to go back to the beginning. To the place where the legend of Flo-Jo was forged in hardship and determination. Before she was Flo-Jo the icon, she was Dolores Florence Griffith, or just DD, to her family. Born in Los Angeles in 1959, she was the 7th of 11 kids, which pretty much guaranteed a life of chaos and competition from day one. When she was 4, her parents, an electrician and a seamstress, divorced. Florence, her mom, and her 10 siblings all moved into the Jordan Downs public housing project in Watts. It was a notoriously tough place to grow up, defined by poverty and a world away from the Olympic podiums she'd one day command. This upbringing gave Florence a deep understanding of what it meant to struggle for money, a feeling that would drive her for the rest of her life. But it also gave her a place to discover her first love, running. She started at just 7 years old, finding freedom on the playgrounds of her elementary school. There's a family story that she honed her incredible speed chasing jackrabbits in the Mojave Desert when she visited her dad. Whether it's true or not, it paints a picture of a girl with a raw, wild gift for speed, but for all her talent, she was a quiet, almost painfully shy kid. Growing up in a packed house in a rough neighborhood, she often felt out of place. So, she turned inward, building a rich, creative world that would one day become her public signature. When other kids made fun of the careful way she spoke, a habit her dad drilled into her, she didn't change, she leaned into what made her unique. She'd crush crayons and mix them into clear polish to make her own nail colors because her mom's weren't good enough. She spent hours in her mother's closet, trying on clothes and imagining a future far beyond the projects. Her vibrant, one-of-a-kind style wasn't just for show. It was a shield, a way to express herself, and an act of defiance against a world that tried to make her feel small. On the track, her talent was undeniable. By the time she graduated from Jordan High School, she'd already set school records in sprinting and the long jump. College was the obvious next step, but money was always tight. After her freshman year at Cal State Northridge, she had to drop out and get a job as a bank teller to help support her family. It looked like her Olympic dreams might be over before they really began. But her coach, Bob Kersee, saw her potential and wasn't about to let it go to waste. He helped her get financial aid to return to school, this time at UCLA, where he'd just started a new coaching job. It was the break she desperately needed. For the first time, Florence had some stability and a real path to dedicate herself to the gift that would soon make her immortal. At UCLA, Florence's talent absolutely exploded. She became a college track star, winning the NCAA championship in the 200-meter dash in 1982. The next year, she proved she could do it all by winning the 400-meter title. By the time the 1984 Olympic Games came to her hometown of LA, she was ready for the world. While she didn't take home gold, she won a silver medal in the 200 meters. But it wasn't just her running that caught everyone's eye, it was her style. The press was obsessed with her long, wildly painted fingernails, some over 6 inches long. It was the world's first real glimpse of the personality that would soon have millions hooked. After the '84 Olympics, Florence stepped away from the track again, working as a bank teller and doing hair and nails on the side to make ends meet. But the pull of competition was too strong. She came back with a vengeance in 1987. That same year, she married Al Joyner, the 1984 Olympic champion in the triple jump and brother of another track legend, Jackie Joyner-Kersee. With Al now as her coach, she started a brutal new training routine. What happened next was just astonishing. 1988 became the year of Flo-Jo. At the U.S. Olympic trials, she ran the 100-meter dash in 10.49 seconds. That time didn't just break the world record, it shattered it by an almost unbelievable 0.27 seconds. To put that into perspective, her time was faster than the men's national records in several countries at the time. In an instant, she was the fastest woman in history. She showed up to the 1988 Seoul Olympics not just as an athlete, but as a full-blown phenomenon. Now known everywhere as Flo-Jo, she was the picture of speed, style, and confidence. She completely dominated the games. She won the 100-meter final, leaving her closest rival in the dust. In the 200-meter, she broke the world record in the semi-final, and then, just over an hour later, broke her own record again in the final with a time of 21.34 seconds. She left Seoul with 3 gold medals and 1 silver. Her athletic achievements were massive, but her cultural impact was even bigger. She brought a bold, unapologetic glamour to a sport known for its seriousness. She designed her own iconic, one-legger, running suits in bright purples and lime greens. Her long, flowing hair and those signature nails became her trademark, a powerful statement that you could be a fierce competitor and still be unapologetically feminine. She was a fashion icon who just happened to be the fastest woman on the planet, landing on the covers of magazines like Time and Sports Illustrated. The world was hooked. She wasn't just winning races, she was changing the game. In elite sports, when someone improves that dramatically, that fast, a shadow of suspicion is never far behind. And Florence Griffith Joyner's incredible rise in 1988 was no exception. Before that year, her best time in the 100 meters was 10.96 seconds. Her new world record of 10.49 was a leap that seemed almost superhuman. That, combined with her more muscular physique, led to immediate and constant whispers. Was she on performance-enhancing drugs? The talk wasn't just from the media, it came from inside the sport itself. Other top athletes, like Brazil's Joaquim Cruz, openly said they couldn't believe it. The timing didn't help. At the very same Seoul Games, Canadian sprinter Ben Johnson was stripped of his gold medal after testing positive for steroids. The scandal cast a dark cloud over all of track and field, and Flo-Jo, with her impossible-seeming times, got caught in the storm. Adding to the controversy was the 100-meter world record itself. At the U.S. Olympic trials, the wind gauge on the track read a perfectly legal 0 meters per second. But at the exact same time, a wind measuring device for the triple jump, just a short distance away, registered a strong, illegal tailwind. This has led to decades of debate over whether her record was wind-assisted, but it was officially approved and still stands today. For her part, Flo-Jo always, and forcefully, denied ever using banned substances. She said her transformation was the result of a new, intense weight training program, a strict diet, and the mental focus her husband and coach, Al Joyner, helped her build. She was drug-tested numerous times in 1988, even being singled out for extra-rigorous testing at the Olympics, and she passed every single one. The head of the IOC's medical commission at the time, Prince Alexander de Merode, later said that Griffith Joyner had been unfairly targeted by the rumors, but the whispers never really stopped. A former teammate came forward claiming he had sold her human growth hormone, but he never offered any proof, and the allegation basically ended his career. The public was left to wonder. Was she a once-in-a-generation talent who just hit her absolute peak? Or was there a secret to her incredible leap to greatness? These questions would follow her for the rest of her life, and even after. Just as the world was getting used to her dominance, Florence Griffith Joyner did the unthinkable. In February 1989, only 5 months after her historic performance in Seoul, she announced she was retiring from track. She was at the absolute height of her fame, a global icon with huge endorsement deals and what seemed like a limitless future. The decision stunned the sports world and left everyone asking one question: why? Her official reason was that she'd achieved everything she wanted in the sport and was ready to move on to other things, especially business and fashion. And she did just that. She smoothly transitioned from athlete to entrepreneur, launching a clothing line and even designing the team uniforms for the NBA's Indiana Pacers. She partnered with toy companies to make a Flo-Jo doll and appeared in TV shows and movies. She was proving she was more than a sprinter. She was a brand, but behind the scenes, the real reasons she retired were probably a lot more complicated. The non-stop pressure of the doping allegations had surely taken a toll. Her retirement in early 1989 came just before mandatory, random, out-of-competition drug testing was set to begin, a fact her critics were quick to jump on. They argued she was getting out before she could get caught. Her supporters, though, said she had nothing to hide and was just sick of having to defend her own historic achievements. She'd passed every test she was ever given and was tired of the suspicion. There was also that lifelong drive for financial security that started in her childhood. She had reached the top of her sport, and the world of business and endorsements offered a much more stable and profitable future than the punishing life of a pro athlete. She had a family to think about, and her fame gave her a chance to build something that would last. In a way, her decision to walk away was a sign of the same smarts and grit that had lifted her out of the What's projects in the first place. She had conquered one world, it was time to conquer another. In retirement, Florence Griffith Joyner finally got to live the life she had dreamed of as a little girl. She and Al Joyner settled down in Southern California, and in 1990, they had their only child, a daughter named Mary. Flo-Jo threw herself into being a mother, wife, and businesswoman with the same fire she brought to the track. She became a passionate advocate for children, starting her own foundation for kids in need and being named co-chair of the President's Council on Physical Fitness and Sports in 1993. She was a beloved public figure, a powerful symbol of Black excellence and female empowerment, but away from the track, her health started to show worrying signs. In 1996, on a flight to St. Louis, she had a seizure. She was hospitalized for 2 days, but doctors couldn't figure out exactly what caused it. It was a scary, mysterious event that seemed to come from nowhere. Despite the health scare, her competitive fire wasn't completely gone. Around that same time, she announced a surprise comeback, with her eyes on the 1996 Olympics. But this time, she had a different goal. She already owned the records. In the 100 and 200 meters, now she wanted to conquer the 400-meter race. At 36, an age when most sprinters are long retired, she started training again with incredible determination. Her body, however, just wouldn't cooperate. A painful, persistent tendinitis in her right leg ended her comeback hopes, forcing her to give up on the dream. It was a tough setback, a rare moment when her famous willpower couldn't overcome her physical limits. Her life moved on, full of family, business, and her status as a sports legend. But the health scare and the failed comeback were quiet warnings, hints of a vulnerability hiding beneath the surface of the world's fastest woman. The stage was being set for a tragedy no one saw coming. September 21, 1998, started like any other day in the Joyners' Mission Viejo, California home. Florence, who was 38, had talked to her mother that evening and sounded perfectly fine. Her husband, Al, later said she felt a little tired and went to bed early. He checked on her around 1 a.m. and she was sleeping peacefully, but when he woke up later that morning, he found she wasn't breathing. He frantically called 911. Paramedics were there in minutes, but it was too late. Sometime in the quiet of the night, the vibrant life of Florence Griffith Joyner had come to an end. The news of her death sent a shockwave across the globe. It just didn't make sense. How could an Olympic champion, a symbol of physical perfection, die in her sleep at only 38 years old? The world that had celebrated her life was now forced to face the stunning reality of her death. With no clear cause, a vacuum was created, and into it rushed years of unanswered questions and dark theories. The whispers that had followed her career erupted into a full-blown roar. The media frenzy was insane. Her friends and family, still reeling from the loss, had to grieve under a harsh public spotlight while the world demanded answers. The final chapter of Flo-Jo's story wouldn't be about her life, but about the mystery of her death. With intense public pressure and wild speculation swirling, the Orange County Sheriff Coroner's Office launched a full investigation into Florence Griffith Joyner's death. For weeks, the world waited. On October 22, 1998, they finally announced their findings, providing a medical explanation that was both specific and tragic. The official cause of death was positional asphyxia, suffocation, that happened during a severe epileptic seizure. The seizure itself was caused by something called a cavernous angioma, a congenital brain abnormality she'd been born with. A forensic neuropathologist explained that it was a malformation of blood vessels in her brain that could irritate brain cells and make her prone to seizures. This condition, while often undiagnosed, was likely the cause of the seizure she'd had on the airplane 2 years earlier. According to the coroner, the seizure hit while she was sleeping on her stomach. The convulsions likely wrenched her head to the side, pressing her face into her pillow and cutting off her airway. Most importantly, the detailed toxicology report found no evidence of performance-enhancing drugs. The only things in her system were tiny amounts of Tylenol and the antihistamine Benadryl. The coroner's office was clear: the brain abnormality was something she was born with and had no known link to steroids or any other banned substances. Her heart was found to be a normal size and healthy. Her husband, Al Joyner, felt a sense of vindication. In the midst of his grief, he faced the media and said, "My wife took the final, ultimate drug test. And it's what we always said, there's nothing there. So please, give us time to grieve and just let my wife rest in peace." The U.S. Olympic Committee issued a statement urging an end to the whispers and dark allegations, hoping the science would finally let her legacy be celebrated without the stain of suspicion. The official story was clear: Florence Griffith Joyner's death wasn't caused by a dark secret, but by a tragic medical accident, a vulnerability she had silently carried her entire life. Even with the coroner's definitive report, the speculation didn't just go away. For some, the official explanation felt a little too tidy. The ghost of the performance-enhancing drug rumors, which had haunted Flo-Jo for a decade, was hard to shake. The fact that she died from a seizure, while medically explained, was seized on by those who'd always been suspicious. Some medical experts even publicly questioned the findings, pointing out that death by suffocation during a seizure is extremely rare. This rarity just fueled more theories. The autopsy proved there were no steroids in her system when she died, but it couldn't prove she had never used them. A coroner spokesman even clarified that point to the media. This ambiguity allowed the rumors to shift. The new theory was that while steroids might not have killed her directly, long-term use of things like human growth hormone, HGH, could have caused other health problems. Some pointed to notes in the autopsy report that mentioned an enlarged heart and other organs, which can be a side effect of HGH use, though this could also have been due to her elite athletic training. The argument became that even if a seizure was the cause of death, her body might have been weakened by past drug use. It's a theory that's impossible to prove or disprove, and it ensured a question mark would forever hang over her legacy. Adding another layer of tragedy to the whole thing was a painful and very public family dispute. In the aftermath of her death, Flo-Jo's own mother sued her son-in-law, Al Joyner, for wrongful death. The lawsuit claimed he had been negligent and could have done more to prevent her death, a claim that flew in the face of the coroner's findings. This legal battle exposed deep rifts in the family, turning their private grief into a public spectacle and making the story of Flo-Jo's final years even more complicated. The woman who spent her life trying to provide for her family had left behind a legacy that was now being fought over in public. The story of Florence Griffith Joyner is one of dazzling light and deep, stubborn shadows. She is still an almost mythical figure in sports history. Her world records in the 100 and 200-meter dash still stand, untouched and seemingly untouchable, a monument to a level of speed that we still haven't seen again. For over 3 decades, the world's best sprinters have chased her ghost, and all have fallen short. Her times from 1988 weren't just ahead of her era, they almost feel like they exist outside of time itself, but her legacy is about so much more than numbers on a stopwatch. Flo-Jo was a cultural revolutionary. In a world that often demanded female athletes fit into a neat little box, she blew the box up with unapologetic flair. Her one-legged tracksuits, her vibrant colors, and her long, painted nails were more than fashion, they were a declaration of independence. She shattered the narrow idea of what a female athlete should look and act like, proving that strength and femininity, power and beauty, could go hand in hand. She gave generations of athletes, especially women of color, permission to be their full, authentic selves, yet, you can't escape the fact that her story is a tragedy. It's the story of a girl from the projects who fought her way to the top of the world, only to have her greatest achievements questioned forever. It's the story of a life cut short at 38, leaving behind a husband and a young daughter. Her death, while medically explained, is still a subject of debate, tangled up in the same controversies that defined her career. What do you remember most about Flo-Jo? Was it her incredible speed, her iconic style, or the controversy that always seemed to follow her? Share your thoughts on her powerful legacy in the comments below. Florence Griffith Joyner's life forces us to look beyond the surface, past the medals and the magazine covers. It's a reminder that behind every huge public victory, there is often a private, human struggle. She was a woman who ran from poverty, who ran toward her dreams, and who, for one brilliant, unforgettable summer, ran faster than anyone ever had. Her story is a complex mix of resilience, glamour, controversy, and heartbreak. And though her time here was tragically short, the legend of Flo-Jo, the fastest woman in history, will, just like her records, endure.